Today I'll be giving you some simple tips to consider when building your units in Arknights. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was two types of players that I've seen in the Arknights community, and that is proactive and reactive. So a proactive person is more of the prepper, so the person that likes to get ahead of the game basically. So they spend a little bit of time at the very beginning getting their resources, getting their units up, and then they just kind of go through big bulks of the story and or content. And then once they start to see the team slow down a little bit, they go back, resource grind, get their team kind of more fluid, and they're never really hitting a solid wall. They hit like these little soft locks basically where they can see that the team starts to go down, and then they just kind of get the resources up. Or you're reactive, which is the way that I played, where you just play as long as you can, hit a huge wall, notice that you can't go any further, and then you get enough resources, grind up your characters enough to kind of go over that wall, and then you just keep plowing around, and then you hit another wall, and then you kind of do the same thing. So basically you're just always hitting walls, and then you're just kind of doing enough to get over them and progress that way. So the reason I even bring it up is because if you are proactive, I will say that the game is going to be a little slower at the beginning because you're going to spend a little bit more time on the resources, and you're not going to be like totally in all the chapters right away. Totally fine for either way. I just kind of wanted to mention it in case you are proactive. Just give the game a little bit, but my biggest thing is play the game the way that you want. Have most enjoyment the way that you want to play it. The game's very forgiving. You'll eventually get to a point where you're getting as far as you want in any of the content. So next I'm going to be using platinum here as my kind of dummy model for the different things I wanted to talk about. So level, promotions, potentials, and rank skills and stuff like that. So if you have played other gacha games, you're probably familiar with this, but I wanted to talk about it just to give you an idea. It can get a little overwhelming when you're looking at stuff. So when you're looking at a character, attributes over here to the left, it'll tell you all the things you need to know: max HP, attack, defense, res, redeploy, slow unit. Okay. Deployment cost 10, block 1, attack speed here, fast, trust, all the different things, the rarity. The trust actually gives you, like if you click trust, it'll show you what you're getting for your stat increase. In this case, it's gonna be 75. And then your name, what kind of unit they are. You can click it and it'll tell you all the different rundowns of the different classes, which is really cool. Attack range, and then range, DPS. So usually here it'll tell you like they're a ranged unit, and then it'll say, like, for example, this is like a DPS, but maybe it'll say AoE or something like that. So it gives you just kind of like a nuker or something like that. It gives you a little bit of a rundown of what this character's kind of aiming for in terms of that. So moving on to our levels here. Again, if you played other gachas, you probably kind of know, but Arknights UI here is going to be pretty efficient. So they recently updated it. All you got to do is kind of go to the number that you want. If you have the resources, bam, it auto populates what you need. You don't have to worry about being efficient. It's being efficient for you, which is really nice. But if you're like, what, I kind of want to do it on my own, you definitely can. You can grind and, click whichever one you want. If you do want to do that, like for example, if you scroll up or whatever, you want to make sure to click cancel. I don't know why it does it that way. But talking about LMD real quick, if you've never seen this resource, it's like your basic currency resource. You get it from everything. But there are resource stages to grind with if you wanted to go that route, or you can get it from just playing the game. Basically, you get a ton of different things. You can see all these different stages that you get it from. Get it from the event shops. They have cert shops. They have like game modes have certain shops. IS2 has stuff that gives you a ton of it. So it's one of those currencies that you get a lot, you spend a lot. So you can see a 1.1 mil, and that may seem like a lot, but it's never enough. And eventually get to a point where you get to a base, and it's a really efficient base, and you can just kind of grind this passively, which we'll kind of talk a little bit about. Won't talk too much about it because I want to do a dedicated base building video and stuff like that. So talking about the currencies here for your EXP, your green one's going to be 200, blue is going to be 400, this one's going to be 1,000. This is kind of like an orange yellow, I suppose. And then your gold is going to be 2,000. So obviously they kind of go up as you progress, and kind of the same thing with these guys. So you can get them from different stages. You can get them from your base, and then you can get them from your resources. You can get them from the cert shops as well, the events shops and stuff like that. Very kind of attainable, but again, it's kind of in the same vein as LMD because once you have a bunch, you start leveling up some different units and stuff like that, and then it becomes one of those things where you always want more as you kind of progress. So the next thing we're going to talk about is promotions. So I don't want to get this super complex. I will just kind of explain it very basically. So here is the idea. You get a max level, right? So in this case 50, you use your boy LMD, he's back. And then you get your chips. So chips can be kind of gotten in a couple different ways. They're not as common as like the EXPs and LMDs and stuff like that. So you do have to get them from resource stages. You can also get them from specific event stages. So there's an event stage, and I think it goes based on who the welfare operator is, but in that event shop there will be the chips and stuff like that. You can get them from the other search shops as well. But the main kind of way that I've just been grinding, especially tier 1s, is just from resources. And then tier 2s are just a step up. They have their own resource stage as well. Now, eventually to get to the E2, you will need tier 3 stuff. And to get that, you will have to use your base workshop. So basically you'll just take as much as you can with your tier 2s and you convert them to tier 3s. I think it's like 2 tier 2s equal 1 tier 3. I know like it's kind of confusing, but it'll be a little bit more example whenever I show you in the base. Your mats kind of follow the same progression. So as far as mats, I will link an efficiency farming thing. And it's just one of those things where if you're farming mats, you want to kind of pay attention to it. Somebody did a lot of work to get that stuff done, and it goes in your favor to save time. So the reason that I even mention it is because there are scenarios like you look at this and this is guaranteed. Okay, well, I want this mat. Okay, I want to go for the guaranteed. Why would I want to go for an uncommon? So basically what this means is that it's a drop rate for this mat, like rare. Like this is very hard to get this mat, but this is guaranteed. There are some instances where you may grind like 7-11 and it's common. So you have a good percentage to get this mat, but you also have a good percentage to get a different mat, which will also help you. If you get both mats, yes, it'll take a little bit longer, but eventually you'll have a more built out mat collection, which is why the efficiency farm exists. Or, you know, you may be kind of, I don't know, it may be more reliable that way or something like that. So it's just one of those things where somebody put a lot of time and effort into the efficiency guide to give you guys an idea. You don't want to waste time when it comes to this game, especially when your mat farming can cost quite a bit of time. So as far as actually eluding or like promoting your characters, so you can see maximum attributes increase, DP cost +2. So this is kind of like the necessary evil. You always get a little bit of a DP bump, which makes it a little harder to deploy them, but you get more skills, you get different talents, you get range up for this particular character. So if you click the actual details icon there, you can actually see that you get new skills, you get a range up again, and then you can see the different talents and stuff. So this is very awesome for people who are kind of on the fence on whether they want to get their first E2, like, or E1, for example. So I want to put the investment in. Okay, well, you can read the character, you can read what goes on, and you can see like, yeah, okay, you know what? That actually seems worth it to me. Okay, I'll do it. So that's just one thing to think about when it comes to promotions. I always like checking it out, seeing if it's worth it. Potential. So you've probably heard this in a different thing like constellations or dupe system, whatever. So basically if you get another platinum, it gives you a potential. The potential gives you different stuff. Now, what I will say for potentials is they are not a necessary thing for Arknights. In my experience, there's never been a character where I'm like, damn, I wish I would have had a different potential. I'm screwed. Now it helps, obviously, DP cost -1. Okay, if you get both of these, dang, and you had just actually got your E1 for free for DP cost anyway. Recruitment time -4 seconds, attack +23. This attribute thing is different depending on the character. Improves talent, so it does help. So it obviously does, but it's not one of those things where it's like your character is going to be useless if it doesn't have it. So like platinum's not useless if they don't have it. Now, I will say that if you have lower rarity units like 3 and 4 stars, you're more likely to get them as you grind and summon and stuff like that because they're just more common, obviously, in the pool. It's just one of those things where it just helps out. That's all it does. It's not a necessary thing, and you just kind of can be fine without it. So as far as your skills go, so this is something that I was going to kind of think about recommending when it comes to the current skill level, but we'll just quickly kind of go over this. So basically what this is telling you is it needs E1 to unlock. So basically you have to promote the character to E1 to get the level skill 5. So if you do just kind of go through the progression though, you will have some different mats and these skill summaries. So they start off on skill summary 1 and goes to 2 and then to 3. These are another currency that you can get through the resource. You can also get these through search shops and the event shops as well, workshops. You can also build those from, I think you can do like a tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 2 to tier 3 stuff type of thing. So kind of evolves, like you can evolve them basically as you kind of progress. So again, this is just one of those things where you get quite a bit of them as you progress, but they cost quite a bit. And then for the mats, this is a very similar story here. You just get your mats as you kind of progress. You use your efficiency farming guide. Now, the thing I was going to recommend before I didn't realize you had to be Elite 1 is that if you're using a unit and you're trying to get kind of like familiar with that unit, I do recommend putting a little bit of time into the skills. And I was going to recommend level 5 because level 5 is kind of where it starts to kind of the turning point basically for the skill levels in Arknights. And this is something I had to learn the hard way. Skill levels mean quite a bit. So they're kind of a big power spike for a lot of the characters. They give a lot of different things for skills and they boost up the skills to make them way efficient. So it's not one of those things where it's like really hard to get them. you know, these materials aren't necessarily hard to get, right? But it is going to be like kind of a cost thing when it comes to like having to E1 a character and stuff like that. I think once you E1 though, you can go all the way to level 7, which is the max level. But what I was going to recommend is level 5, because again, that's kind of when the teetering comes, where it comes more efficient. And if you're getting a character and you're wondering if that character is going to be really good, get that person to skill 5, or at least as high a skill as you can get, just to give them kind of a fair chance and like, okay, this character is actually pretty good. So then tier 7 would be like, this is a character I'm going to use all the time. I'm gonna skill 7 them. You know what I mean? So basically you'll get to a point where you're skill 5 and everybody, skill 7 everybody, but just kind of pay attention, because this is something that I had to learn the hard way. And it's just one of those things you don't think that matters, because in some games they don't, you know. So but in this one it does. So as far as the other stuff, you have your modules, you have your traits. We got to see the traits in the promotion. So since she's actually not E1, she won't have her trait at the beginning, but you can see, like, you know, the traits kind of just give you some different stuff. They're basically like passives in a way. So the higher the attack of the next attack will be the longest interval. So basically this is just one of those things that give you stat increases. You click on any other character, for example, I use an E2 just to give you guys what it looks like for E2s. You can see that, you know, it just helps out quite a bit with your skills. And then if you go to your marksman, some people have modules. Not everybody has a module. It kind of depends. It comes out in bulks. But modules are very helpful. They modules almost can kind of change the way a character plays, and it can really make a character very efficient. Now, I wouldn't say that modules are a necessity all the time, but there's some things to think about. So you need to be E2 basically. You need to be level 60. You have to have a max of 100 trust. I think the max is 200, but you have to have 100. You have to have these module blocks you can actually get from, okay, it says here, so store, mission reward, event reward. So there's tons of ways to get these, some ways to buy them, but I personally have never spent like search stuff or anything to get these. They just kind of passively come. But if you are actively grinding modules, you might get to a point where you maybe need to kind of grind them out. This is kind of a higher tier when it comes to your Madden. You're going to get this from workshops. You can get this from event stages, and you can get this from just kind of like some different things. But mainly it's going to be like your workshop. You're going to tier this, and then you also have your famous LMDs here, and then you have to do some stuff. So like mission and completed. So you have to go do some different missions, and then you can see like base stat changes, and then you actually have a branch trait, which is going to be a different type of trait. And, you know, and it increases 110% when attacking aerial units. So it's just like, yeah, it definitely helps out. It's one of those things, but it's just one of those things that are way down the line. Way down the line. You can even get to the point where your mastery, like your masteries for these guys, I'm not even going to talk about it, just because it becomes one of those things where, you know, as you get masteries, they do help out, and they do give you way more stuff for your attacks. There are certain things that need to be mastered. And just to give you an idea though, I will link a operator list. So basically it just gives you an idea of what different operators there are, what's good with them. Do you need masteries? Do you not need masteries? What the skill and what the level? That'll also be a link in the description, so you guys can get an idea on what masteries do. Very far out though. So basically that's something that you're doing during in game. You won't really worry about it when you're first starting, and then your traits, and then your talents and stuff. So this is kind of what it looks like if you have talents. You can see what it does, and it's a really efficient kind of way to look at some different things. So overall though, that's just kind of what I was thinking of doing for this video. I will just end it on kind of a rarity thing. So when it comes to units, I recommend doing the rarities on kind of the lower rarities. If you're experimenting and kind of seeing what characters do, these are the units that I would put some resources into, because they cost less. So basically there's a progression system. So if they're the 3 stars into 4 stars, they're going to cost way less than like 5 or 6 stars. So it's just one of those things where if you have a lot of 3 stars and you're kind of wondering like, okay, so what does a DPS range do? Like cruise, for example, and you look up your guide or whatever, and you see that this is a good character to use, then you can kind of see what they do and kind of get an idea, you know, because you're not putting so many resources into this character. But ultimately play the way you want. If you see a cool 6-star and you want to grind the 6-star, go ahead and do what you want to do. But getting a fleshed out 3 or 2-star is going to be kind of a more beneficial to you when it comes to learning the game, because you're not going to have to dump so many resources into them. That's just kind of what I recommend overall. Hopefully this guide helped you out, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good rest of your night, guys. Peace.